We actually had a priest do a baptism on the car to see if he could remove whatever bad spirit was kind of this. I grew up in Venezuela, and Venezuela kind of defies logic. Cars, for example, are very, very different. Cars are very, very expensive in Venezuela. If you look at the conversion, something like a Toyota Corolla can be upwards of $50,000. So I was lucky enough to inherit my dad's 2005 Seat Ibiza. And for those of you who don't know, Seat is a brand owned by the Volkswagen Group. And it's kind of an in-betweener between an Audi and a Volkswagen. And the Ibiza model is kind of the equivalent of an A3. And I was lucky enough to get this car as my first car and just loved it. It literally got dented inside of the dealership. So we got it like a brand new car already with a dent. And that was just the beginning of a history of at least 13 or 14 different events that happened to the poor car. I remember one time my dad was sitting in traffic, and this biker just was rushing between the lanes and did something, whatever, and he just took off half of the door, like he just rammed into the door and then takes off half of the mirror. And bikers in Venezuela tend to be very supportive of each other. So my dad decides to get out and make sure that this guy is okay, that everything is safe. And he's checking on the biker, and a lot of other bikers start pulling around, and they're like, oh, you look like you have money, you're not gonna pay for this guy's medical bills, you're not gonna pay for this guy's bike, like this guy's bike is his work instrument. And my dad is like, this is not my fault. I had nothing to do with this accident. So my dad hands in a few bucks here and there to try to cover the guy's mirror and just try to de-escalate the situation and leave because he was running late to teach a class. He was able to get away out of that one because they realized he had concealed carry, so they immediately kind of all backed out. But it was one time there was a rush hour traffic on the highway. There was no way of kind of getting through, and my mom decided that it was the best idea to just reverse at least a mile and a half to the nearest exit and just leave the highway. To her credit, she made it mostly safely out of it, but when she decided to turn around to change directions and face forward and take another street, she missed out a massive block of cement that was in the middle of the street, so she just hits it. We were literally talking the day before, I was like, I think this car needs backup sensors. I want to install them. And she's like, no, this is such a tiny car, you don't need that, you can just put it anywhere. Week later, I just have a massive hole in my bumper, and that's just how it is. This car just kept getting dents anywhere. It was just, thankfully it was side panels and stuff, and I pretty much became best friends with the body shop that was kind of taking care of the car. I had an episode when I picked it up from the body shop, and the washer fluid was leaking on the car. I had to take the tire off. The reservoir was right on the bumper in front of the front of the tire. And little did I know, they actually didn't tighten the bolts on the driver's tire. So had that not happened, there was gonna be another accident for the story of that car. And my dad asked me to replace, the radio in his Toyota Hilux, and I was like, sure, I'm up for it. I disassemble the car. Toyota cars are really easy to work with because they make great sense. So to my surprise, I'm putting everything back on, and the new radiator doesn't start. And then I'm like, you know what? It might just be a fuse that shorted out. I'm just gonna go real quick to get a fuse. So I left the car, half of it disassembled on the interior, and I hop onto my Seat, and I'm just going to this equivalent to an AutoZone, a couple miles away. And as I'm driving through, there's this very busy street, probably 4 or 6 lanes. It's always kind of busy. And literally the store is next to an intersection, so I just have to do the turn. And as I'm gonna turn around, I get to the green light, I kind of miss it, and I just slam on the brakes, and I'm just waiting for that. Immediately the car just shuts off. Then I'm like, I don't know what it is. It ended up being that the clutch went out. So I was really kind of stuck in the situation and had no way of moving it. Thankfully, people around me just came out to help. There was this older gentleman, some guy who just hopped out of nowhere, and this one guy who ran from the store, which had a gas station, and I don't know where exactly he came from, but he comes and helps me, and he's like, we'll help you out. After people helped me out, everybody was like, oh, are you okay? Do you need to call a tow truck and everything? I kind of rolled it in. But this one guy who came from the gas station, he's like, oh, don't worry, I'll stay with you to make sure that you're safe. And I'm like, sure, whatever. I call my insurance, I call a tow truck, and they're like, yeah, we'll have somebody there in 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I call my parents, and I'm like, Dad, the car died on me. I'm at this location, X, Y, and Z, already called a tow truck. Just please don't tell my mom, because she's probably the worst person ever to try to get in an emergency. And he's like, okay, sure, I'll just try to head there. And then he's mad at me because I left this car all disassembled and it's just a master drive and there's no dashboard and all this stuff. So he's like yelling at me for a sec and then he's like, I'll be there, don't worry. The guy next to me who was there to keep me safe just proceeds and starts, trying to get information about me, about where I live, about stuff like that, which I was like, at first I was like, he's trying to make conversation, but then it got really suspicious. And then this guy approaches me really closely and he's like, opens a bag that he has, like a fanny pack kind of thing. And then he has this Glock 9mm inside of the bag. And he's like, this is how I'm gonna keep you safe. But you just have to tell me the information that I need to know. And I'm like, okay, this is not gonna work out. And I'm just praying in the inside and just like, somebody show up. Like, my dad, please show up or something, or at least a tow truck so I can get out of here. I'm sorry to say that the first person to show up was my mom. My mom drove a very kind of flashy car for Venezuelan standards. So she had a Peugeot 307cc, which are the ones that become convertible, the hardtop convertible ones. She's like, oh yeah, don't worry, your dad is here. At this point, when this guy realizes that I know her, she's here to support me, he literally takes his gun and just puts him on his back and he kind of covers it a little bit. So I know gone out that's a hint for me to be like, don't say anything, we're kind of here, let's figure this out. Thinking, how do I de-escalate this? What should I do? Should I run? Should I tell her to go? What do I do? And I'm trying to give my mom a sense that things are not well. And she kind of got the hint. And thankfully, my dad decided to show up. And my dad, he parks in at a different spot, like closer to the store. And he's able to come from behind me and behind this guy. And so he sees the gun. And my dad always has had a concealed carry permit and has always been, ready for the emergency and whatnot. So he gets, he realizes that his James Bond moment has come up, and so he has to step it up to the task. And so, he's trying to figure out, okay, now I have my son and my wife here. This guy has a gun. This guy has both front cars here. It doesn't look like I should start a shooting match or anything like that, which I'm really thankful for. I run into the luckiest kind of situation for me, and this AutoZone thing had like a gas stop and like an automatic car wash in the back. At that point where we're all kind of sensing the situation, my dad is trying to give the guy some money to kind of walk away or something like that. This guy won't leave. He's still kind of pressing and he's making me see that he's kind of about to pull the gun and whatnot. At that point, police sirens start sounding all over the place and I'm just, blown away. I'm like, nobody here called the police, so I'm wondering what is going on. And to my luck, somebody in that automatic car wash had confused reverse with drive and just reversed their way back and ran over one of the car wash employees. So somebody obviously called the police, 911, everything, his whole shebang, and they're all coming in right then and there. And this guy just freaks out and he starts running and he gets away. The tow truck never showed up, nothing ever showed up, and this guy just ran away, disappeared from the face of the earth as soon as those sirens showed up and the policeman showed up. So we actually had a priest do a baptism on the car to see if he could remove whatever bad spirit was kind of this. So literally, we had this priest of my school just show up with holy water and start spraying around the car and give a prayer or something like that, because they couldn't believe that this the poor car was just always in the shop, always getting dented, always on something. So used cars actually appreciate in Venezuela. If you have a car at hand, it actually appreciates because you can sell it out immediately. People are willing to pay a premium over that because it's available. And so when I sold the car, even though it was pretty much 6-7 years old at that point, we still made a 10% profit on the car, despite the accidents, despite whatever. 6 months later, the new owner, former boss, tells me that he was at a party, he took the car, he left it parked in the visitor parking, and a truck came in, and in reverse, they just hit him on the side of the panel and just went through, and they had to actually total the car. So, up to its last day, this car really did have bad luck, and no holy water or prayer was going to be able to wash that one off.